Welcome, guys, to another episode of Reach Your Peak podcast with your host, Bobby Enright. On today's show, we're going to speak about, we're going to do a Q&A. It's one thing I want to say before I start the show is a huge thank you to everybody who has listened to the show over the last nearly a year and a half to 2 years now. Today marks a very special episode because it's our episode 100 of Reach Your Peak podcast, and I mean this wouldn't be possible without the help and guide and guidance of all of the listeners, and basically all the people that are asking questions or interactive on social media platforms and really giving very positive feedback on the actual channel. So really happy with the way it has gone. Really appreciative of all the people who listen to the channel. It's a privilege, and I'm absolutely delighted that I'm sitting here now recording episode 100. So thanks a million, guys, for that. And on today's show, just to mark that, I'm going to do a Q&A. So a good few questions have came through on social media, and I put out a little poll for people to ask questions. So I'm just going to pick 3 questions that kind of I think are really going to help the most people. So the 3 questions I got back that really are going to resonate with so many people. So let's kind of kick it off with the first question. So the first question came in from Susan, and the question is, how do I know where to start with calories? No, that's a very good question, in terms of an awful lot of people will ask that. Where do we start with calories? What do I do? How do I even know what I should be consuming in terms of protein, in terms of carbs, in terms of all these macros? Where do you actually start? So my advice there for you for starting would be, and I've answered this question before on the podcast, would be, you need to start first and foremost with tidying up your diet's profile. So start off with the structure of your diet. Look at certain aspects of your diet in terms of, okay, what is your nutrient intake like? So we got nutrients coming from our fruits and vegetables. What's that like? So if we can improve that straight away and start to look at, okay, do I actually take in a lot of vegetables in my diet? What's the variety of my vegetables I take into my diet? Is it all the same? Is there a little bit of color? Is there a little bit of green? Is there a good mixture there? When I look at fruits, is there a bit of variety and diversity in the fruits? It's not all just one source of fruits. Am I taking in some variants of berries? Am I taking in some variants of maybe apples, bananas, mangoes, pineapples? There's so much option there, and certain fruits will have their own unique properties that can aid you in your goal of better health and better lifestyle and better nutrition. So we start to look at that. We start to say, okay, let's see from the standpoint of what's the basics first. What's my vegetable intake like? What's my micronutrient intake like coming from vegetables and fruits? Then we'd start to look at, okay, what is your protein intake like within your diet, and where's the protein sources coming from? We know from years of research that an improvement in protein within a diet is going to have a massive effect on body composition going forward. It's going to have a satiation effect from the meals you eat. So you're going to get that fuller feeling because the body has to break down that protein. We're also going to utilize calories breaking down that protein, and also protein is the building blocks of muscle. So we want to obviously promote lean tissue. We want to decrease fat mass, increase lean mass. So our main goal there in taking in proteins is going to aid all that. And that's going to be really important. So what's the protein intake like in your diet? If there is no protein, or you don't understand, so is there any meats or fish coming into your diet? Is there any dairies coming into your diet? If you're vegetarian or vegan, lentils, legumes, what's coming in there in terms of protein? So you could start to map that out. And this is all done before you ever look at calorie figures. And then from there, I would say, once you kind of get the overall tidiness of the diet set up, we could start to look at, okay, where are we most active in the day, in terms of when is the most energy required in your day? Is it kind of from lunchtime towards bedtime? Is it from morning time to lunchtime? Are you active throughout the day and you've got a really busy job and you need a lot of, we'll say, ready energy sources within the body because you're very output based in terms of maybe your workload? if it's just a person has a desk job or whatever. So you need to look at where the background story is there. Are you active? Are you not at work? And literally partition your carbohydrates. If weight loss is the goal, partitioning the carbohydrates roughly around that period of time of the day. Now, this is not a set in stone and doesn't have to be the exact formula. It's just something that can work really well. So you could just say to yourself, okay, where's my busiest time of the day? Is it kind of lunchtime towards my bedtime in the evening? I kind of start to be more active, and obviously then maybe training in the evening, there's a lot of energy required there. So that's where I could start to potentially put in some of my carbohydrates. So we look at carbohydrate sources, then what are they like? Are they very, very processed carbohydrates? Are they very high GI carbohydrates? So could we potentially change that to maybe a whole food carbohydrate source, and then maybe looking at a lower GI source of carbohydrates could be potentially a better option for that person. It all depends on the individual. As I say, this is a very generic question, so just trying to answer it as best I can. And fats then as well, we'd look at fat sources and say, okay, where's our main fat sources coming from? Are we predominantly taking a lot of saturated fat, a lot of trans fats, because maybe potentially eating a very processed diet? And remember, our trans fats are not are added fats. So these fats are added in the processing production. So when somebody produces a certain food type, trans fats are added into foods to preserve shelf life. So that's going to be a huge thing there. So this is not a natural fat that's in the food. It's put in the processing. So where is all these fats coming from? Is there a balance of mono, poly, and saturated fats? So is there nuts and seeds? Is there oily fish coming in? Is there different types of meat coming in? Whatever the profile of the person being. So we're looking at all this blueprint first before we ever kind of dig deep within calories, because I think we jump to calories too quickly. We within the world of dieting and the world of people trying to lose weight, and a lot of these companies, they're going to promote eating low-calorie foods. So straight away the diet is cut, and it's all based around low-calorie foods. Foods that are going to be calorie friendly, and are they going to be nutrient dense? Are they going to be something that the body's going to break down well and is going to fuel the body? No, they're not. And I mean, do they help people to lose weight at the start? Absolutely. But going forward over time, we need to look at the food types we're bringing into the body, and then look at basically, okay, can we get as nutritious as possible food coming in? So nice calorie, nutritionally dense food coming in that has a high nutritional value, and then basically balance that within the figure that we need to lose weight. Not always just trying to add in as much food as possible, because we went for so many low calorie, sugar free, all this kind of style foods in our diet, which are going to be very, very highly processed, going to be very hard for the body to break down, and are not going to be nutrient dense. So from a health perspective, that's not going to massively help us in terms of our lifestyle and our overall health. And that's what the most important thing is. When you're trying to lose weight, you need to get your body in a position to burn fat as fuel, get your digestion in the right place, get your sleep, get your recovery, get your stress all in the right place, so your body is in a better position to burn fat as fuel, and to the body to change the composition of the body. So that would be the starting point of where we would start with your nutrition. And then after that, I would advise you, then we would start to look at, okay, what would be a maintenance calories for you? So basic, easiest way to do this is to teach yourself first how to use MyFitnessPal. So you learn how to use MyFitnessPal. You say, okay, I know how to do that. Then I would say to you, track your diet on MyFitnessPal for a week. So everything you're consuming, just scan it or put in your weights or whatever you have to do. So you've learned how to use MyFitnessPal. You didn't go to your diet and you go, okay, now I can track for a week and see, and then I get an average figure of how many calories I'm taking in. And then you can also, alongside tracking your food, watch your weight and see which way the weight is going. If you're not losing weight on the current calories that are coming in after a week, then potentially you can drop your calories a little bit. It doesn't have to be an excessive drop. Say now you calculate your calories coming in at 1,800 calories per day on average over a week's period of tracking. Then you could say to yourself, okay, if I go to 1,700 calories, and I start to track and see what 1,700 calories does to my body composition, and the weight starts to move in the right direction, then potentially you're in a calorie deficit. Then you can start to look at adding in and breaking down how much protein you should have, how much carbohydrates, and how much fat. I'm always saying to people, 1 gram per pound of body weight for protein kind of hits most people's requirements. But again, that's all relevant to the person, the size of the person, the amount of fat tissue to lean body mass that the person has. So again, this is very, very kind of a generic option in terms of how much should you consume. And again, I would say to somebody, look, the easiest way for you to do it is start off with 1 gram per pound, see how you go. If that is way too much protein for you and you're not used to taking in that amount of protein, cut it back, start small. Maybe if you're a 200-pound person, you're taking 200 grams of protein, you say, okay, that's extreme. I've only been taking in about 80 or 90. When I look at my fitness pal, because it will tell you how much protein, carbs and fat you're consuming, maybe bring it up to 120, up to 130, up to 140. So you can start to slowly progress it and bring in a little bit more. And then what you're doing is you're just, for a general population person trying to lose weight, just the remaining calories after you hit your protein targets, the remaining calories that are left over, so you're taking in 1,700 and 400 of them calories is going to protein. You've got 1,300 calories left, just a partition between fat and carb with your own preference in mind. What's your kind of preference towards food? Are you more a carby person, or would you like to take in more fat into your food, or would you like to go 50-50, or would you like to just go more carbohydrates? And maybe you're somebody that potentially is going to train a lot, lift a lot of weights, need that energy source, need that recovery capacity. So they might be biased towards taking a little bit more carbohydrate. So that's really, really important when it comes to breaking down and kind of figuring out where to start. And that would be my advice on where you should start in terms of your calorie consumption at the start of the dieting process and the start of your weight loss journey, if weight loss is your goal. Now, if we take a totally opposite person and we look at and we say, okay, what about a person that wants to gain muscle or sports performance? Then we look at it from the same standpoint. We look at the overall diet, the overall structure, do the exact same principles I've spoke about, track your food intake for the day, for the week, look at what the average calories are, and then see, okay, what do I want to improve here? Do I want to lose weight? So if I want to gain muscle, how much body fat have I actually got in my body? So do I need to do a bit of a recomp phase to drop a little bit of body fat, tidy the body composition up a bit? That could be just you losing, maybe dropping 1 or 2 kilos, 3 kilos max, and that could just tidy you up. You look a lot better at that, and then you can start building up from there, and calories can start to increase. And again, you match that with output in your training, and then you're looking at building muscle. Obviously, training plan is going to have a big factor there as well, alongside the nutrition. So we have to look at it from that standpoint as well. So there's several factors in play here. If it's a performance-based goal, you start to look at, okay, what's my average intake? Okay, how much protein am I giving? So you start to break down, we say 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's perfect. So let's start there. And let's start to think, okay, I'm performance-based. What's my sport? Is it predominantly aerobic-based, anaerobic-based? What's the energy system that's been used within the sport? And then we know what substrate needs to come in there in terms of energy production. So predominantly field sports, a lot of carbohydrate dominant. If we go beyond 60 minutes in any kind of sport, we're looking at the reliance on carbohydrates as fuel there. So again, the most important thing for performance is recovery. What's your times like? Where are you tracking your training? Are you tracking your runs? Are you tracking your games? Are you looking at your heart rate? Where's your resting heart rate? Where is your recovery capacity when you go above them zone 2, zone 3, zone 4? How long is it taking you to come back down into that recovery zone, that zone 2, zone 1? These are all factors you need to add in and really dial in on from a performance standpoint. Then you can just add food if you feel that the energy levels are recovery is impeded. You're not recovering as best you can, and performance isn't going the right direction. Then you can start to look at increasing your calories up a little bit. You have your protein equated for, you're hitting the right protein targets, and then we start to look at how much carbohydrates do we actually require. Maybe that needs to be increased. Are you taking a little bit too much fat? So maybe we need to bring that ratio down a little bit and increase carbohydrates a little bit. Maybe potentially putting carbohydrates intra-workout, during your workout, maybe if it's beyond that 60 minutes. But again, this is all relevant to the person. It's all individual to the person, the sport, and what they're trying to achieve. But again, you can start with the same basic principles of tidying up the general overview of the diet, tracking for a week, get an average figure, and then from there you have a baseline to start. You're either going down or you're going up, depending on what the goal is. So that's kind of giving you an overview, guys, of that question. And Susan, thanks a million for asking it. It's a very good question. I think everybody could really benefit from the information given here on this one. And it's really, really about getting that baseline. And then you've got somewhere to start. It's like getting data. It's like a scientist. They need data to work from. Same with yourself. You need something to be accountable to. You need something that you can go back to and say, okay, there's progression there, or I'm not progressing. So what can I change? And always look at the variables to change. And that brings me on to the next question, which came in from Mike. Mike asked about when I'm trying to lose weight and it stalls, how can I, what decision needs to be made in terms of dropping food or increasing workload or output? So basically on that question, Mike, I think you're asking if you are trying to lose weight, for instance, and your weight stalls and plateaus, which happens in an abundance of people. And this is something that people will look at straight away and say the first thing they'll think to attack is food. Take food away. Okay, that's the first mistake that's been made within the weight loss world, or body composition world, is people are continuously wanting to take food away because they think it's the only way to lose weight. So we have to look at the variables, right? So when you're trying to lose weight and you've set your calories and suddenly you're losing weight and everything is going in the right direction, you've created a bit of a calorie deficit, you're feeling good, and then suddenly your weight starts to plateau. Food is only one variable you can look at there. So we need to break that down. So we can look at food, calories, either increase or decrease. We can look at training, okay? Output, so training, strength training. What are we doing? Can we do an increase or decrease there? The next thing is output through NEAT. So that could be steps, it could be cardiovascular work. Can we increase steps there? Or can maybe we increase cardiovascular? Can we add another session? So we need to look at it there. What's sleep and recovery like? What's your mood like? What's your general hunger levels like? What's your overall diet structure like? The foods you're consuming and the times you're bringing them in. What's the profile of the food you're bringing in? So we've loads of things we can start to look at here. We don't have to necessarily pull food, because if you're under recovered, you're a little bit stressed from your training and your weight loss and your dieting, pulling food is only going to drive that stress response even more, because if you keep going with what you are currently doing in terms of your output and you pull food away and you're already stressed and under recovered, what's going to happen? You're just going to spiral that up even higher. So the important thing here to look at is maybe potentially you're taking in the right amount of calories, your weight is just stalled, so maybe increasing your step count a bit more. Maybe you're averaging out at 10,000 a day. You might say to yourself, okay, I'm going to increase that to 12,000 a day. That's 2,000 steps per day. That's 14,000 steps a week extra. So you've already increased your output, and it's something that's very easy to recover from. And that could be a starting point for you. You might do that for 2 weeks and see how the body weight reacts. You might look at your sleep and say, my sleep isn't on point. I'm not getting adequate sleep at night. I'm only getting 4 or 5 hours. Okay, let's start to look at that. Let's start to improve that, because that's one opportunity for our body to recover, hugely recover, and put us in that more parasympathetic mode where the body's going to function a lot better in that rest and digest mode. So at nighttime, sleep is so important from a standpoint of performance, from a standpoint of stress response, for just an overall well-being. Sleep is going to have a huge factor there. So sleep is another thing. Under recovering is another thing. Training wise, what's your training load like? Are you actually doing too much and putting too much systemic stress on the body, in terms of you might be training 5-6 times a week, weight training, and you're just not recovering from sessions and you're constantly in that fatigue state? So it's not the food issue here. It might be a case of, let's cut back the volume of training and we pull back the stress. Now, that's not saying that you take it completely easy and you cut your volume in half. It might be just taking a day away. If you're training 5 days a week, you could say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to train Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to do a rest day Wednesday, I'm going to train Thursday, Friday, and I'm going to rest Saturday and Sunday. So then you have 3 days rest in the week where you could put in a little bit of low-level cardio work. You might put in, just increase the step count on them days, and something that you can is very parasympathetic dominant and is very, very easy for you to recover from, and will aid recovery in one way, because we know some aerobic training on your rest days can actually aid recovery. So that could be something you could look at, actually pulling back on training a little bit. Or on the flip side, you could be training and maybe 3 times a week, and you could say, do you know what, I'm feeling good on 3 times a week. Instead of me touching food, I'm going to increase calories. Or not increase calories, increase an extra day of training. So it's very, very simple there. All you've done is you've been training 4 times a week, 5 times a week, whatever, or sorry, say 3 times a week, and suddenly you say, okay, I'm going to add in a fourth day, automatically then that's more output. So you are in a bigger deficit there. So that could kickstart potentially a further drop in weight. So it's not always food we should look at. We should look at all these variables, write them down, write down first thing, food, calories. Next thing, training. Okay, strength training. Next thing, output, steps, cardio. And then next thing, sleep and stress and biofeedback. So you look at your biofeedback macros. You 4 areas you can look at there and make a decision and pull from one or add to one or whatever you need to do. And then track and monitor and see how you are. And then over time, you'll find the variable that suits, but not necessarily food is always the one to pull from, because it's our source of energy within the body. And one thing with people, especially people go into prep as well, they feel like prep is going to be a place where we get weaker, we get smaller. Yes, we get leaner, but we get weaker and smaller. And the way we do that is just doing loads of cardio and eating less and less food all the way through prep. But we should flip the switch on that completely. The thought process there is wrong. In prep, we have a potential and an opportunity to build muscle. We have a potential and an opportunity to get stronger. We just need to change our thought process on it. It's not about getting weaker and eating less and less food. It's about potentially growing some quality muscle within that period of time. And towards the end of our prep, yes, we'll have to pull some food. Yes, we'll have to do an extra bit of cardio, but it's not our thought process from the start. Our thought process from the start is, listen, we're going to go into a 16-week prep here. We're going to spend 8 to 9 to 10 weeks building muscle here, giving it everything we have. And then we've got a bit of a digging period at the end just to pull a little bit of food, add a little bit extra cardio in, just to tighten up completely. Because remember, the less food that's coming in, the more output that's going out, the more systemic stress you're driving into the body. And that could be a potential for not a very, very good building ground for the perfect physique. So when it comes to prep, guys, that's one thing I would advise you there. Change your thought process towards what prep really is. It's an opportunity to build quality muscle and get into the best shape you possibly can. Change your thought process on that. But going back to Mike's question, that's the 4 kind of variables I would look at when I look at somebody's weight stalling. My first thought process as a coach is never pull food. It's not a healthy place to be for somebody. You're just pulling it to get weight to go down. Are you actually thinking about the actual client themselves? From a coaching perspective, you're trying to get somebody in the best shape they possibly can. It's not about getting them as skinny as you possibly can. So that's the difference. Changing somebody's body composition, we need to look at them 4 variables and start to mimic, or not mimic them, but start to play around with them until we find that sweet spot where we find weight coming down, body composition is looking in a really good place. And again, for Mike, for your question as well, take photographs, analyze your photographs as well. Look at photographs from week 1 to whatever week you're in, where you found the stall. Do your little bit of a change, take a photograph again, 2 weeks later, look again, see if there's a little change of body composition. Are you looking better? Energy levels up? You start to look at all the variables, and that will give you a great place to figure out, okay, where should I pull from or what should I do? So that's a really good question on that as well, guys. And a question we had in from Haley was motivation, something I feel I lack in lockdown. And I when gyms are open, I found my motivation high, but now in lockdown, I find my motivation to train is really low, and I'm stressed about my body composition, and I feel I'm building a lot of anxiety around training. Good question, and something that some people can relate to massively. I mean, to be honest, guys, when we've got a gym to go to and train, we're going to have a place where there's going to be a great environment. You're going to go in, there's people there, you meet them, your friends, you possibly have training partners. You've got an opportunity to train really nice equipment. You can really, really push yourself in your training, and there's a real sense of motivation going into your sessions because you're enjoying them. The challenge of different machines, the challenge of different weights and heavier weights and lighter weights. So I can see why somebody's motivation would be very, very high when the gyms are open. Now, home workouts, guys, are brilliant, and everybody at the start, I think it was a real novelty to work out at home and go online and train with all these classes and stuff like that. But it can become very mundane because you're not leaving your environment. You're in all the time. That's the biggest drawback. You're in an environment at home. You're in the same place. You're not really moving. You're going to the next room or into the garage, and you're trying to build yourself up to do a workout. You're potentially on your own as well. So you don't have any training partners. There's no buzz there. You're trying a bit of music, and it's great at the start, but it wanes an awful lot. So Haley, on that question, I would say to you is, don't be too bogged down on the type of training you're doing. if you're coming from a gym background and you've been training in the gym all the time and you're really into your weight training, any type of resistance for you is going to be a benefit anyway. You're not going to lose a massive amount of muscle over a period of time. Yes, over a longer period you will, but when it comes to strength and it comes to muscle mass, it takes time. If your nutrition is on point and you're doing some form of resistance, whether it be calisthenics, true body weight, or it could be to just the minimal equipment you have, but you're still challenging muscle in some way, you're going to hold on to a lot of what you had. And remember, you're still using muscle to lift that weight, even to do body weight exercises. You're driving tension through muscle tissue. So there's still a challenge there. When you go back to the gym, yes, you will feel potentially a bit weaker. You will have regressed a little bit on the weights that you were doing before lockdown, but you will build that up quite quickly because your motivation is going to be at a new high. You're back in a new environment again. There you have the social aspect, you have the buzz about the gym floor, and you're really going to see your numbers starting to go that direction pretty quickly. So what I would say is don't get too bogged down on the type of training you're doing, because I think people are stressing too much about that, trying to get the perfect training session, trying to match as much as possible as they were doing in the gym. The main thing for you is just keeping yourself active and healthy, choosing maybe different styles of training at the moment when you have the opportunity to do that. Maybe you're working more on your aerobic capacity, doing a little bit more conditioning work, maybe getting out and doing some hill sprints, some hikes, some runs uphill, different types there. Maybe you're doing some long distance running, maybe you're doing some cycling, whatever you're doing. So you might be challenging yourself different aerobically. And then at home, when you're doing your home stuff, potentially just jump on and do a body weight session with somebody, jump on and do a weight session with somebody. So you're varying your training through the week, and it'll keep you fit, it'll keep your heart healthy, it'll keep your body composition in check, and also it'll prepare you for that time you're coming back to the gym and you're ready to hit the gym floor and absolutely smash it. Because I can guarantee you, when you do hit the gym floor, just remember, you're going to have a buzz about you. People are going to be saying welcome back. You're going to walk into the gym, you're going to have a new sense of meaning when you walk in there, and you're going to see your progression going that way. Yes, we might have to take a little step back on the pins and the weights we're lifting. We might have to drop down our dumbbells or drop down in the weights we're doing, but the opportunity for growth is huge, because the body's been away from that stimulus for a period of time. So it's going to adapt pretty quickly to what you're doing in when you get back in the gyms. So Haley, what I would say to you there is, don't get bogged down too much on the training you're currently doing, or the type, or the exercise selection. Do something you enjoy as much as you can. Mix up your training and vary it as much as you can, because when you come back to the gym, just remember, you're going to be ready to hit the ground running. So just keeping yourself active and healthy is the most important thing at the moment. Keeping the mind healthy as well. Challenge yourself in different ways, maybe reading books or going on courses or learning stuff there. That's going to be a huge benefit to you. And these are all challenges that we can do that really help you as you move forward closer to when gyms open. And when they do open, I would say to you, have your plan set. Get a coach, get a program, get a clear pattern what you want to achieve. So when the gym door opens, you're ready to go. You're not fluffing around. You can go in, you can start the baseline on all your lifts and then build it up from there, and have a clear goal set. So you can be even working towards that now. That could be something to keep the mind stimulated at the moment. You could be starting to plan, okay, what's my goal when I come back, and maybe talking to a coach, or even getting onto one of us at Peak Performance Academy, and we can help you to plan for when you come back, and that can really help you. So that's something I would say. And again, motivation, guys, it's going to be down, it's going to be tough, there is going to be heightened anxiety as well. So the biggest thing you can do for yourself is look after yourself and self-care. I did a podcast on this 2 podcasts ago, and we spoke about self-care. It's really important, and I would say, Haley, jump back on that podcast, listen to the few little tips, and start to implement them few tips that we spoke about in that podcast. And then you can look after yourself, both mentally, physically, and emotionally, because it's really important. But as I say, the anxiety is caused by overthinking the whole situation, the stress of doing the same thing every day. Mix it up. Don't be afraid to say, if I don't do a weight session for a week, it's going to cause a difference, it's going to change my body composition massively. No, it's not. Change up your training, mix it around, bit of cardiovascular work, challenge the aerobic system, both low-level aerobic and high-level aerobic work, and then challenge muscle tissue, either body weight or with some resistance. A couple of times a week, mix it around, get out, go hiking, get out in the good weather when it's there, and really enjoy yourself with your training. And then when you come back into the gym, have a plan set with a coach, knowing what to do, exercise selection, everything bang on point, have that first phase of your program ready to go, and you hit the ground running. And I can guarantee you, your motivation is going to be way up here. Your numbers are going to start to go that direction very, very quickly, and you are going to hit the ground running. So really, really important. So they were the kind of top 3 questions I got in, guys. I got a good few more questions, but they were kind of the top ones I wanted to touch on because I felt they were the best bang for the buck in terms of people can take a lot from them. So hopefully they will help, and hopefully you got something from that. And again, if you have any questions, guys, or anything you would like me to answer, please reach out in our platforms. You'll find us on Instagram at peakperformance.academy. You'll find me personally on Instagram at coach.bobbyinwright. You'll also find us on all Facebook pages, Peak Performance Academy. And again, guys, just reach out, ask the questions. Remember, if you ask the questions, you'll get an answer. At least then it'll settle your mindset in terms of, okay, I understand that now, and I know where I'm going in my own journey. So that's really important, guys. So don't be afraid to do that. Again, thanks a million for listening to 100 episodes. I'm so grateful for everybody that has listened. Grateful to everybody that has commented. Grateful to everybody that has set foot in the gym from this podcast. And I hope you've learned and taken something from these first 100 episodes. I am looking forward to the next 100 again. This is a weekly podcast, and we'll be carrying this on and on and on. There'll be more guests coming on, and I will have a guest next week as well. So something to look forward to, a different voice again. And I hope you enjoyed last week's episode where we had Team ROR Rebecca O'Rourke on, which was a nice fresh outlook on women's training and just training in general. So I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. And again, please subscribe, review, and just share the podcast on your social media platforms. It would really help to grow the channel. And again, guys, if you have anything at all you need, please reach out. And again, thanks a million for listening to another episode of Reach Your Peak Podcast, and we'll catch everybody next week.